Guys, welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth. We're here for another amazing episode. We had week 1 of the NFL season. I think we were all super excited to see NFL football back. We're going to get into a bunch of week 1 games, some breakout performances, and a lot more topics. So this is the Cold Hard Truth starting right now, live from 7 to 8 p.m.
Are you crazy?
God, that's insane. Buddy, what are you doing? Like I said, boys, welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth. You got myself, Santino Maoni, Conor Armstrong, Jacob Jarrett, Peyton Marshall. How you guys doing, boys? Football's back.
Fantastic. Happy as a clam.
Great weekend.
G-Men are 1-0, baby. Let's go.
Besides the Patriots, I'm very upset about that. Don't want to talk about it.
Peyton, trust me, I'm upset too. I'm not happy either. So,
Fair
it was a rough week 1 for both of our teams, but we're going to jump right into it. I want to go first to Thursday night. Buffalo Bills, LA Rams. Peyton, I'm going to go to you first. Your general reactions. Were you surprised by the outcome of how the beatdown the Bills gave to them, the amount of turnovers they forced, the way Josh Allen played, the way that offense looked? Give me your thoughts on that outcome of that game, 31-10.
I was not even a little bit surprised. Sorry to cut you off, Tino. I thought Stafford. I mean, I was the one that was saying Cooper Kupp was going to have a recession. I'm probably very wrong about that because the only guy that Stafford can throw to is Cooper Kupp, it seems, and Higbee a couple times. He targeted Robinson one time. Like, I could not believe. I mean, I wasn't surprised by how poorly they played. I knew the Bills were that good. Diggs was out of his mind. I mean, he mossed Ramsey, which was absolutely crazy. I mean, everybody saw that play. The Bills looked just as dominant as all of us said they were going to be. And again, the Rams just looked weak. Besides Kupp and Stafford, that connection, the run game wasn't good. Akers did nothing. Darrell Henderson looked okay, I would say, but Bobby Wagner and that defense losing Von Miller, Bobby Wagner looked slow and old, and that's all I got to say about that. I'm not surprised, again, that the Rams played like crap, and I think they're going to continue to play bad during the rest of the season. They're going to get a couple wins, but I don't think they're a contender this year with how Stafford's playing.
Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think overall the Rams just look way too one-dimensional. I mean, in terms of Cooper Kupp, as Peyton mentioned, being their primary receiver, it's one thing to be primary, but it's another thing to seem like you're an entire team's offense. And that's really what it looked like. And you can't have as much success as you had last year if that's the case. Because last year, even though Kupp set records for the amount of receptions and attention that he got, you still had other guys getting involved and being reasons that they won football games. They can't rely on just him. And the Bills are going to be the best team in the NFL this year, in my opinion. I think they could shatter even our expectations, which were 12, 13, 14 wins. So I think they're that good.
Conor, your thoughts on that opening night game?
Yeah, Bobby Wagner, old and slow, and Von Miller still looks like he's in his prime. It was insane. Matt Stafford looked like he was back in Detroit. Maybe a little Super Bowl hangover there, but I mean, Cooper Kupp looks as good as ever. I've been on the Josh Allen bandwagon since the day that kid was drafted, and he's more than likely going to be the NFL MVP. I think that everybody saw that in just in week 1. Their offense is disgusting, and the defense, you can't say enough about them. 3 picks, and I think they forced a fumble as well. It was just an insane game by the Bills.
Yeah, I want to talk about this too. When you have a quarterback who can stiff arm a DB like Derrick Henry can, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. I mean, that play that he had, he literally ran the guy over. And there were plays even towards the end of the game where I was talking to guys at Quinnipiac. I'm here right now, and obviously Conor and Jacob are as well. But I know Bills fans over here that were like almost not mad, but just saying like Josh Allen, why are you running at the end of the game? These like pointless runs, getting 5 to 10 yards, and I'm saying, guys, This is who Josh Allen is. He is a football player. He wants the contact. He welcomes the contact. He wants to take the big hits, and he wants to give it right back to you. All those different defenders, linebackers, DBs. Josh Allen is unlike any quarter. I think he's the closest thing we've seen to John Elway since John Elway was in the NFL. The way John Elway, what comes to my mind is that 92-yard drive he had against the Browns, literally in the mud, was running guys over, had a phenomenal arm, a really, really strong cannon. Josh Allen is the exact same way. He can run you over if he wants to, or he can roll out to his left and launch a 40, 50-yard pass to Stephon Diggs, who beat Jalen Ramsey like we saw in that play. Josh Allen can do virtually everything on a football field. The defense, I was honestly surprised with how good Von Miller looked, not just how good he looked for the Bills, but how bad the Rams defensive line looked without him. Because without him, Donald did not get as much pressure as we've seen in the past. Yes, Josh Allen was getting the ball out a lot faster, but Leonard Floyd might have well as not been on the field on Thursday, because without Von Miller there, Floyd had no impact. Donald couldn't do much. Their secondary wasn't that good. They just did not look great. And I kind of feel stupid saying they were going to go 15-2 with the way they came out and played in that game, because they are looking nothing like they barely on that Thursday night game looked like a 10-win team, 11, maybe if that. They have to get their minds right and figure out a way to come back in week 2 and really show us that the Super Bowl hangover is not going to be a weekly reoccurring thing. But moving on, I want to go to the Packers-Vikings game. First game we see Rodgers without Devontae Adams. Did not look great. He threw his first interception against an NFC North team since December 29th, 2019. It had been almost 3 years since he had thrown a pick against an NFC North rival. Did it against the Vikings on Sunday. Just not a great look for the Packers. I mean, we saw that ball that Rodgers threw, that go route to Christian Watson, who I said again was going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. The first opportunity he gets to make a big play that was going to be a touchdown, totally just dropped it. The Packers did not look good. Conor, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on the game. What do the Packers have to do to kind of bounce back from this? Even talk about Justin Jefferson's performance. The guy gave me 40 fantasy points. He went absolutely nuts. Talk about everything you saw in that game.
I think it looks pretty clear that there might be a new top dog in the NFC North. The Vikings looked unreal. It was weird seeing. It was weird seeing Rodgers.
He's kind of right. He's kind of right.
Wow.
But I don't know. Rodgers just didn't look like himself. Just without that clear number one, he looked a little lost. And I don't know, Tino might be a little bit washed up. What do you think there, kid?
Oh,
Hey-o!
Got him.
Listen, we're going to talk about washed up. I mean, listen, did he look good? Not by a long shot. But also, can we give the guy credit that, literally for 3/4 of the game, not a single soul was open. The guy was running play actions. He was creating time. Nobody can get any space from the secondary. So, I mean, yes, listen, did Rodgers look good? No. But we're really going to put this all on him. That again, no Allen Lazard out there either. He wasn't there for week 1. That definitely hurts him. But
you're gonna act like Allen Lazard is gonna make that big. That was
Allen Lazard is not.
He played like garbage.
Act like Allen Lazard wouldn't have caught that go route if he was playing the X position.
I don't think Allen Lazard would have got off of the press. Are you kidding me? Like, look at that. The guy can't run a route. Like, what are we talking about, Tino? You think Allen Lazard would have made that big of a difference? Aaron Rodgers played like garbage. Kirk Cousins threw all over that defense, which I thought was going to be better. Zadarius Smith looked like a new player over at the Vikings. I didn't have the Vikings making the playoffs, and I feel like an idiot.
I had him making the playoffs. I'll say
there is no Kirk Cousins was throwing on you guys like he was Mahomes. I mean, this is a joke.
The only thing I'm going to say is in Matt LaFleur's tenure in week 1 games, we are 2-2, and from weeks 2 to 18, I believe they are 38-9. Week 1s are historically not good for the Packers. Let's take a breath. As Aaron Rodgers used to say in previous seasons, RELAX. Relax. Just chill. We're going to be fine. The Packers are going to be okay. I know they look terrible.
Famous last words from Santino.
Dude, I have them going to the Super Bowl, Tino. I feel absolutely sick.
I had them losing in the first round, but I had them in the playoffs. Okay, that was you saying that, not myself.
Hey,
so listen.
Look,
I know
Tino.
We're about to get Leigh Steinberg in here in a second. I know he just popped in, so we're going to continue these conversations after, but we're going to get Leigh Steinberg in here so we can have him answer some of the questions we wanted to do for this interview. So we're going to add him in right now. Give us one quick second. Hey, is Leigh Steinberg, he's there?
Hello. Yes.
How are you?
In just a second here.
Hey, no worries. All good.
All good. So we'll add him in a second once he gets there. But I want to finish off what I was saying. Listen, Packers are going to be perfectly fine. I do not think they're going to win the Super Bowl. That was Peyton's pick. But in my opinion, I had him going to the playoffs. I think they're going to be fine. There's Leigh. We're going to get him in right now. Let's join him
Give him a second. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll give him a second. We'll give him a second before he can hop in. But yeah,
I have the Packers losing to the Bills. I guess I just overestimated that defense with the additions they made. I thought they would look better. Those safeties look piss poor, and they got absolutely. They got burnt. Granted, they got burnt by arguably the best route runner in the league, in Justin Jefferson.
Jair Alexander got burnt many times, and this is a guy I was calling
bad.
The best in the NFL.
It's just one game, though.
But I should have known when I watched Romeo Dubs burning him in practice that he was probably going to get torched during the season. I mean, we have Romeo Dubs from Nevada State or whatever. Like, are you kidding me, bud? Like, come on now.
It's just one game.
That's true. Listen,
well, since when are you protecting the Packers?
Me, I never say it bad. I never say bad thing about the Packers.
But why are you like protect? They played like garbage.
Hold on, let's try to get Leigh Stein. Let's try to get Leigh in here real quick. 1 second. Hey, Leigh.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good to have you.
Yeah, so we got him in. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We have Leigh Steinberg joining us, and in his 41-year career as a sports agent, Leigh Steinberg, he's represented over 300 professional athletes in football, baseball, boxing, and Olympic sports. He's represented the number 1 pick in the NFL draft a record 8 times. He represents current NFL athletes, Tua Tagovailoa, Patrick Mahomes, and if all that wasn't enough, he was the real-life inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire starring Tom Cruise. So, Leigh, thank you so much for joining the show. We're going to get it started with questions. Conor, you have the first one. Get us started.
Yeah, Leigh, I wanted to ask you, when did you know that you wanted to become a sports agent?
Not till it actually happened, because it's actually been 48 years. I started in 1975, and there really was no field of sports agentry then. Matter of fact, teams could just hang up the phone on agents and say, we don't deal with agents. So there was no right in the collective bargaining agreement. So when I went to law school, I was thinking of many other fields, but not this. But I was a dorm counselor in an undergraduate dormitory, and they moved the freshman football team in the early 70s. And one of the students was Steve Bartkowski, who in 1975 became the very first pick in the first round of the NFL draft. And he asked me to represent him. So there I was, brimming with legal experience, never having practiced before. And there was a World Football League competing against an NFL, and we got the largest rookie contract in NFL history, and that's how it began.
Awesome. Jacob, you're next.
First off, Leigh, thank you so much for coming on. Out of the record-setting 8 times that you represented the first pick in the NFL draft, who were you the most sure would be a great player throughout their career?
It didn't take much judgment to think that Troy Aikman was going to be an outstanding quarterback. Kajana Carter was a sure bet to be a great running back in 1995, but he blew his knee out. Drew Bledsoe, I thought, was pretty sure to be a top pick, so anybody picked first in a draft is supposed to have a dynamic effect on their team. It's supposed to be someone, if it's a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, someone you can win because of rather than with, who you can build around for 10 to 12 years, and someone who in adversity, thrown a couple interceptions in a game, the crowd's booing, the game's getting out of hand. What does that player do then? Can they compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, and elevate their level of play in critical situations? So it should be that type of player. Steve Young, there was not much doubt that he was going to be great. He just happened to sit behind Joe Montana, which was difficult. But I think all those players, and then in addition to the 8 number 1s, I had 7 number 2s in the first round, and I thought all of them had a real chance.
Yeah, Peyton.
Leigh, thank you for coming on again. We really appreciate it. How did your time at UC Berkeley and your position as the president of the student body help you cultivate the art of non-confrontational negotiation?
I was student body president at a time in our history where there was enormous change coming across the campuses. People were growing their hair out long and beards and dressing in tie-dye, and we had amazing rock and roll, and there was sexual freedom, and people were using herbal substances. So it was a very different time. And I was student body president. The war in Vietnam was going on, and we kept demonstrating against it. And the governor of California was Ronald Reagan. And every time we demonstrate, he'd crack down. So I learned everything I needed to learn about the art of negotiating from dealing with Governor Reagan, who had the leverage, who had the power, how not to personally get antagonistic. So it's all those things.
Yeah, definitely. And final question of the, my next question. Throughout your career, you've been involved in various philanthropic projects. Bit of a two-part question here that I have for you. Can you touch on a few philanthropic projects that really stick out to you, and why do you feel it's important to use your position to help others?
Well, let's take that in two ways. The athletes we ask, who we represent, to go back and retrace their roots back to the high school community where they set up a scholarship fund or work with a church or Boys and Girls Club, to the collegiate community where someone like a Warren Moon or Troy Aikman endowed a full scholarship at their university, and then a charitable foundation that has the leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders that executes a program near and dear to the athlete's heart. So that's like work done putting the 200th single mother and their family into the first home they'll ever own by making the down payment and moving them in. But in my own life, my father had two core values. One was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was try to make a meaningful difference and help people who couldn't help themselves. So the Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, and I, under the Clinton administration, set up a program called Adopt a Minefield, where you could demine an acre in Angola or Mozambique or Cambodia. I set up a program with the Anti-Defamation League to train people to spot hate groups and skinheads and intervene in crisis situations, so the advanced vanguard against hate. I think all of us have the opportunity and responsibility to make a positive difference in our own ways, in our own times. But I think athletics gives us the cultural symbols that can trigger imitative behavior. So when I had the heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement that said, "Real men don't hit women," it could do more to trigger change in rebellious adolescents towards domestic violence than 1,000 authority figures ever could.
Most definitely. Conor, your next question.
Yeah, Leigh, what would you consider to be the highlight of your career?
Well, there have been multiples. One of them, Conor, was being able to give the presenting speech for Warren Moon when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006, because we had gone through 23 years together. He had entered football at a time where there was a certain skepticism among scouts and GMs as to whether or not a black could play the position of quarterback. And so he had to go to Canada for 6 years, came back as the best player, and was the first African-American quarterback in the modern era to be put into the Hall of Fame. So that was one. I think when Troy Aikman won his first Super Bowl, and we're in the limo on the way back, and I said, "Troy, do you know what just happened?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, we won the game." I said, "No. When you entered the stadium, you were Troy Aikman, good quarterback. And now you're Troy Aikman, name up in lights, and it'll never be the same again." And then Steve Young had, again, been in the shadow of Joe Montana. So he goes out in the Super Bowl and he throws 6 touchdown passes and he's MVP. And I ran down on the field and he ran up to me and said, "The monkey's off my back. The monkey's off my back." And then, who would have expected Patrick Mahomes to be the MVP in his first year of playing football?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible moments. Jacob.
So as you mentioned, a lot of the guys that you represented did end up getting to be in the position to be successful and compete for Super Bowls. But in terms of dealing with guys in the earlier part of their career, who was some of the youngest players that you dealt with, whether it be in football or other sports?
Well, we had young baseball players in our baseball practice. So I represented a number of high school draftees coming out. But when they changed the rule back in 1990 to admit juniors into the draft, then the players progressively became younger. So someone like Tony Gonzalez came out his junior year. Someone like Desmond Howard, Heisman Trophy winner, came out his junior year. And so, but now with NILs, you can market players in high school. So it's a whole different step to have someone sitting as a high school quarterback, and then you have to recognize their talent and sign them because they're going to go out and brand themselves and try to do deals immediately.
And for you personally, what would you say is like the biggest difference in your work in terms of dealing with a 30-year-old quarterback and an 18-year-old one?
Well, the 30-year-old one should be playing much, much better, because playing quarterback is all based on the amount of reps you see on the field, and seeing the field over and over again, so your decision-making gets better. So as long as a quarterback doesn't get injured in his legs, you can see what a Tom Brady can do.
Peyton.
So your client, Tua Tagovailoa, and the Miami Dolphins picked up Tyreek Hill this offseason. They obviously had a great start against the Patriots yesterday, which I was very upset about, but I had to watch it either way. With the plethora of offensive talent, a good offensive line, and a pretty great defense, where do you think the Miami Dolphins' potential, like where is their cap at this season? Do you think they could go,
I think it'll be a couple of years of progression, but I think this year, as they get it all together, they'll definitely make the playoffs, and then where they go. Tua not only has Tyreek Hill, he has an old college Alabama receiver, and the combination of those two is really frightening to teams. And look, I always tell players going in a draft, forget whether you're number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6. What you really want to go to is a team with a great, stable ownership, with terrific front office that knows how to do all the transactions, which a coach that has a plan, and with a supporting cast, because you may be really happy that you went to Jacksonville as the first pick, but that's going to be a different future than if you got drafted by Kansas City.
Most definitely. And we'll see what the Dolphins can do. Obviously, they have a lot of young talent, so we'll see if they can piece it all together this season. But Conor, give us your next question.
Yeah, Leigh, so outside of anyone that you've represented in your career, who's your favorite athlete of all time and why?
Probably 2. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because I went to UCLA for a year before I went to Berkeley, and I got to know him on campus, and he had the longevity. Plus, he's so bright and writes books and articles and the rest of it. But Muhammad Ali was the greatest athlete I ever saw, and took some courageous stands in terms of the draft and the rest of it. But and he was just so funny. He was hilarious and entertaining. He actually cut a comedy album called "I Am the Greatest." So there's something about the individual sports, whether it's Tiger Woods in golf or a boxer, where they have the ability to make an individual impact.
Yeah, two great choices. Jacob, next question. What do you got?
Absolutely. So in terms of the team sports rather than individual ones, obviously fan bases play a huge role in terms of how teams' seasons can go at times, especially in football. We've seen Seattle, for example, really ride on their crowd in big games down the stretch of a season. So has there ever been cases where a player will really take that into account in terms of a free agent decision, and based on how a fan base may be rather than the actual team itself?
So what you do with a free agent is you have to have good listening skills, and you have to sit them down and have them list what their priorities and values are. Is it short-term economic gain, the money that would come from a bonus? Is it long-term economic security? Is it family considerations? Is it geographical considerations, weather, lifestyle? Is it being a starter, being on a winning team, the quality of coaching, the fan base, the system they run? And you have to prioritize each of those and then take the available opportunities and match them up against the values. And whatever hits your top 3 or 4 values is there. So absolutely, every player wants to play where they're appreciated. And having a rabid fan base, is great. I mean, I think Denver, if you ever go to a game there, is a crazy thing. Kansas City, is absolutely nutsville. And when Seattle's screaming at the top of their lungs, they've got the same intensity of a jet airplane taking off from a aircraft carrier.
Right. Yeah.
And
really
there's
tough.
There's a reason they're called the 12th man. It's literally that. It's that 12th man on the field impact. Yeah, Peyton, what do you got?
So you've helped many players transition from the field to the commentary booth, whether it be Troy Aikman, Desmond Howard, Steve Young, to name a few. How important do you think it is for NFL players and all athletes in general to have a plan for life after the league?
It's incredibly important. And one of the first questions I ask someone who comes in to our office to talk about representation is, what other skills or interests do you have behind athletic ones? And we start to plan early on. In other words, that alumni base from their college is a great mentor group. They can help them get started. Do you want to be in business? Do you want to be a coach? Do you want to be in media? Do you want to work for a front office? And let's start to think about that right away and build those relationships and build the display of skills that you need to go forward in that. So if you think you want to be in management, get to know the owner and the general manager really well. If you think that you want to go into business, Steve Young and Brent Jones used the fact that they were playing for the 49ers in Santa Clara that had big hedge funds and venture capital and had high tech there. And Brent Jones ended up with a $4 billion hedge fund. So it's lay those seeds today so that you have a smooth transition. With Troy Aikman, it was making sure he had broadcast the game with then NFL Europe so they could see some tape of him. In other words, get your start somehow and start planning and networking, so the minute you need to make that transition, it's already set for you.
Most definitely. And Leigh, you and I had met at the Super Bowl at Radio Row when I was in Los Angeles with Dave Stevens, towards the Rams-Bengals game. And obviously they ended up winning the Super Bowl. We got to chat a little bit about, you were part of the organization of Save the Rams when they went to St. Louis and then coming back to LA, all that different stuff. They opened the season in Los Angeles at SoFi on Thursday night against the Bills. I do have to ask you, coming off of the Super Bowl win, what were your expectations for the team in this season? And what were your thoughts on that opening night game against the Bills, losing 31-10?
Well, you couldn't have had a much more motivating first game than playing at home, having won the Super Bowl. You're celebrating the Super Bowl. You're on the only broadcast on at that point. I don't know how you could be more motivated. And then they just got thrashed, and you just didn't expect the quarterback to play that way. You didn't expect the turnovers. You didn't expect the lack of offense. And then defensively, they just got shredded. And so that was the last thing that I really thought was going to happen. But, you got to remember, this is not like electronic football where you just press the lever and the guys perform at top. These are human beings who have to be motivated every game. And one of the major motivations is to beat last year's Super Bowl winners. It's to beat them. And so you just would not have expected. And obviously, Josh Allen is good, and everyone has already preordained them for the Super Bowl. We got a season to play, but Josh Allen and the Bills were really, really fired up, and the Rams were flat.
Yeah, and that's how they came out. And listen, I'm still of the belief that the Rams definitely could bounce back and have a great season. I think they still have a lot of talent. Obviously, mentioned the quarterback, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, the rest of them. I do think they can still bounce back, but it was a tough week 1 loss. But it was good to hear your thoughts on that game. Leigh, that was our last question. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciated having you on. It was good to see you again. And again, we hope to have you on again in the future, but really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Nice being with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. That was awesome to have him on. I know he came on a little bit late, but we were just glad to get him in there at some point, get a few questions in. Another great guest right after Kenny Mayne. We're going to keep these guests coming, guys. I'm not going to spoil anything of who we're going to have on in the future, but we got some things in the works. We're going to keep bringing these guests, keep them coming for you guys. But we're going to move on. I want to get Conor's thoughts real quick, because I know Peyton and I gave our thoughts on the Packers and Vikings. Not Conor, Jacob. Finish what you were saying. I know you were saying it was just week 1. There's still time to bounce back. What were your thoughts on that game as a whole?
Yeah, and I'm of the immense belief, because I got to tell you the truth. The Packers fluctuate every year. They have 1 or 2 losses where the whole league says they suck, and then they win like 6 out of 7. It happens every year. I don't see why it would be different. You're talking about specific guys that aren't that good. Whatever. They've never had a complete team on paper. Last year, I thought, was the most complete we've seen. Obviously, there's way bigger holes. I think Devontae, I can't remember who agreed with me. Huge loss. The most massive of losses you could possibly have. But I still think they bounce back. And one other thing, and just to touch on before, when we were talking about the Bills and the way they came out versus how a team like the Packers came out, I've always felt, no matter who the coach has been in Green Bay, that organization never, ever, ever seems to have everybody on the same page. And you see these younger type of coaches coming in, LaFleur exception, that really know how to ignite a team. And, Sean McDermott, not that he's super young, but he's still kind of that younger, fiery type guy. The Bills are all on the same page. You see with a guy like Brian, is it Dable or Dabble?
Dable. Dancing in the locker room after a big win.
The way he ignites the team in the locker room. I've never felt that there's been anything remotely like that in Green Bay, whether it be McCarthy, LaFleur, whoever else. It just never seems to be the case.
It's not even close. You're right. It's not even close. They've never had a coach like that. Never.
That's what they're missing more than any one player, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And we'll move on from this game, because you mentioned, the loss of Davante Adams. We talked about this on the last show about which loss was going to be bigger, Mahomes losing Tyreek or Rodgers losing Davante. And I was one of the people that said, I think I might have been the only one that said losing Tyreek was going to be the bigger loss than Rodgers losing Davante. Boy, do I look wrong after week 1, because Rodgers threw, it was 1 pick, no touchdowns. Mahomes threw 5 touchdowns, had about almost 400 yards. The guy looked unstoppable against the Cardinals. He utilized Kelsey greatly. Juju Smith-Schuster looked decent. He was running, he ran a few good routes. Sky Moore in the return game looked decent. The Chiefs just looked better. They were still running that. I was saying they were going to lose that feel of the backyard football. They were still running those little flip pitch plays on the goal line where Mahomes would roll out and then flip it to Kelsey, whoever it was.
That's what they're doing, though. They're doing backyard football. It's just not deep backyard football. That's why Clyde Edwards-Helaire got 2 shovel pass touchdowns and same with Kelsey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just changed slightly. Like, he's still playing the same way he is. He just doesn't have that absolute deep threat with Tyreek. He still has it with a guy like MVS, Sky Moore. They can still run. Don't get me wrong. They're not Tyreek Hill, though. So the Chiefs are probably going to run a lot more. I would say this Thursday night game, I think is going to be telltale of that. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get the ball a lot. But again, he's still playing backyard football. It's just not that deep vertical backyard football. But he, again, still has the options.
And I just, real quick, I just think there's like way too little. I mean, real, football fans, of course, will understand it. But for example, mid last season when they were 4-4 and looking terrible, and I told you all they'd end up being good, not even bringing up because of that, there's 2 words that aren't mentioned enough about this football team. And that's Andy Reid. I mean, this guy is one of the best coaches I think he's going to end up being one of the best coaches of all time. Not only based on achievements, but based on, like you mentioned, they're still sticking to their game. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the generational talent of Mahomes. But I think they'd be good with most quarterbacks because it's his system and it's really, really good. And they get the most out of all their guys.
Fair enough.
They do. And we saw that in that game. The point you brought up, because I was one of the people last year that was saying you're nuts. The Chiefs are not making the playoffs.
And you were the only person. You were the only person.
The only person. They were back. Okay, Peyton, you were kind of there with me, but you weren't making the.
I was there.
Excuse me, please. I was like, yeah, I mean, they didn't look great, but I didn't say they weren't going to make the playoffs. And Tino said they were literally going to go their record was going to be under 500. Like, that's a joke. True.
I did say that, and they were back in the AFC Championship game. So obviously, when it comes to the Chiefs, I don't know what I'm talking about. But Conor, what did you see from the Chiefs? Kind of comparing, him not having Tyreek to how Rodgers looked without Devontae Adams.
It felt like really strange just not see. I mean, I think that there is another number 10 on the Chiefs, but not it being Tyreek Hill. Just like them having that one big explosive play and then still being able to put up 45 points is just insane to me. Travis Kelce still establishing himself as one of the best tight ends ever.
Dude, isn't he like 32? He's like 32, isn't he?
Tell 32, 33, around there. Yeah.
Bro,
he's
what?
Old, yeah. He had 8 catches for 121. And this guy, Conor over here, I'm going to out you on the show, texting us in the group chat saying, should I trade Travis Kelce? And we're like, dude, what are you talking
about? Derrick Henry had 8 fantasy points.
Dude, what are you talking about?
Coming out, yeah, like, no.
Come on, dude. That's not even, I had to out you, but continue what you were saying. But that was just a ridiculous text for you to even bother sending. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Continue what you were saying, though.
Thank you, Tino. I'll continue. But no, just the Chiefs just continuing to be themselves without Tyreek Hill is the most impressive thing to me.
Oh God,
is that funny?
I love the comeback. I want to go to a more general conversation though, because it was really crazy to see. There were 24 total turnovers in week 1, and we haven't even had the Broncos-Seahawks game yet. Peyton, what was going on?
Another 8.
Say it again?
Another 8?
Another 8 of them tonight from the Seahawks.
I mean, yeah, we could see that. You could see it from Smith, but like, what, Peyton, I'm going to go to you first. What was it that you saw? Was it one specific thing, or do you think it was just maybe week 1 jitters, teams, players being loose with the football? Like, what was it that we saw so many turnovers in week 1 already?
I don't know, but it's like a really good point.
And the Bengals accounted for 5 of it. It was all on Joe Burrow.
I feel like most of it is just quarterbacks and receivers not being on the same page. If that makes like a lot of it wasn't like there were like Stafford's throws. He's just throwing into like a black hole.
Balls,
like I just don't know why he's throwing the ball. A lot of the other picks this week, I get you could say they're on Burrow. They were on Burrow. Burrow made a lot of bad throws, 4 picks, obviously. But still, I think a lot of it was timing. A point to make about Burrow too, though. I get he had a bad game. I get he had 4 picks. To stay in the game with 4 interceptions, you're pretty good. Like, I don't care. I get it.
Won the game.
Like, that's crazy. If you throw 4 picks, you should be done by like you should be
by
2 scores down
by like 20 points. Yeah.
Yeah, like a good 2 to 3 scores. And this dude stayed in the game after throwing 4 picks. Again, bad week 1, but man, that guy has got some steel balls to stay in the damn game after throwing 4 picks. That's insanity. But I'll let somebody else talk about it because I honestly don't know why.
I want to get more specifically to the Bengals Steelers in a second, but Jacob, I'll go to you and then Conor. Just the turnovers in general. What did you see? You think there was like a specific reason for it? And give me your thoughts.
Well, I'll say I was unfortunately at MetLife Stadium watching the Jets get battered.
Lamar.
I didn't see all of the 1 o'clock turnovers, but I did see a bunch in the later window too. I mean, I can't cite a specific reason, but I mean, it's week one. I think week ones are always weird. I think there's always games that are a lot closer than they would be in a week 10 because of whatever it may be. Teams trying to figure it out, new faces, especially also coaching wise. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like more teams than ever have completely new coaching staffs than ever before, especially a lot of very popular teams too. So I think that's probably a huge factor in it too.
Conor, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, just like the fact of the defense is being like light years ahead of the offenses right now, in my opinion. Just that's just like what happens in the beginning of the season. So I mean, I expect more offense in week 2, but just like getting out of the gate in week 1 is pretty typical to see.
He's probably got the most logical answer out of all of us.
I was going to say,
that makes the most sense.
Because defenses have they can go and watch game film back of certain quarterbacks, certain players.
Exactly.
They can prep a lot better, especially again, like Jacob mentioned, new offensive coordinators, new offensive players on new offenses, trying to learn the schemes, like different things like that. It can throw things off in the first few weeks. But specifically going to the Bengals-Steelers game, Peyton gave his thoughts briefly. This was the first time we've seen a game like this where a player can turn the ball over that many times since Russell Wilson beat Green Bay in the NFC Championship game when he threw, I think it was 3 or 4 picks in the first half alone. The Seahawks as a whole team turned the ball over like 6 or 7 times. They were down 16-0 at the half and they ended up winning the game 28-22. It was the same kind of thing in this game. Burrow was throwing interception after interception, lost a fumble. TJ Watt, I know we believed he was torn his pec in that game. That interception he had jumping off of the offensive lineman on the D. The guy's a freak. But
that was I had to look like really. I was like, that just happened.
How
did
did
he really get?
Yeah,
no
and that one you can't blame Burrow for. It's a phenomenal play by a freak of a human being. That's just TJ Watt making a crazy play. But for Joe Burrow to stay in that game, and then let's talk about that would have been catch if Jamar Chase gets his foot in bounds. Oh my God, the snag that Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, we're going to talk about him in a second, are both on a different, they're both just different. But for Joe Burrow to stay in that, and if it wasn't for the Steelers blocking that kick at the end of the game, and then having the backup tight end as your long snapper was the reason McPherson missed the second one in overtime. So the Bengals realistically, just like in that, remember last year in that Packers game when they was going back and forth in OT with the field goals and the Packers barely edged it out? It was the same kind of thing. Burrow didn't play great, but the Bengals were in this game. They really shouldn't have been. And anyone who I had so many people telling me, because I have the Bengals going 14-3. Oh, the Bengals are Burrows, they're frauds. Guys, he threw 4 picks and was still in the game. They were about to win the game. We have to understand that he played abysmal and they still almost won. That says more about Burrow and the Bengals than the fact that they lost the game fine. That was the expected outcome. They shouldn't have been as close as they were to begin with. The Bengals are not frauds. They're going to be totally, totally fine. I have way much less concerns about them than I do with the Rams because the Rams just got flat out beat. The Bengals should have been flat out beat, but because the Steelers have no offense, Trubisky, outside of the interceptions, Burrow still played a better game than Trubisky did. We have to say that outside of the picks. So not really much concern for me with the Bengals, but Conor, are you concerned about the Bengals' reactions to the game? What do you think?
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily concerned just because you said it. I mean, it was Mitch Trubisky with the Steelers offense yesterday. I mean, you're not going to get anything out of that. So, it was, again, really impressive of him to stay in the game. But, I mean, the Bengals aren't the Bengals defense isn't being challenged at all really either.
Exactly. That's it. 100% I agree with your point. Jacob, your thoughts on that game? I know you were at the Jets game, but.
Yeah, I saw the highlights from it. I mean, I think, honestly, a takeaway from this is I think the Steelers could be a little bit better than we all thought. Or I know some of us may have thought better than others. I personally thought they were going to be really not good. And now I think, I'm not just basing it off the one game, but, I mean, they could play the run and D type season similar to what we see from the 49ers when they have success, where they run the ball a lot and they rely on their defense. I think those two aspects of their team, along with Deontay Johnson, who is, I mean, the catch he had was the catch of the week.
That was amazing catch.
That was with his left hand. So
Yeah.
it's like, if they could have a guy that's absolutely insane like him, if he does stay and be that way, and the rest of the things that we mentioned, I think they could be a decent team. And in terms of the Bengals, worried? No, but I don't know if I agree about the Rams-Bengals take. I think either one could bounce back and be great. Honestly, I don't think. I mean, if in terms of like situations, yeah, the Rams were at home, but you're playing the best team in the league. They can win their next 4 games. Everyone would be surprised.
All I'm saying is that if you had to pick a team that you're more concerned about, I would definitely say the Rams over the Bengals because 100%. Yes, the Rams are playing a much better team, but I am genuinely more concerned about that Rams team than I am about the Bengals. Because again, and T. Higgins went out with a concussion, and Burrow was still keeping him in the game without T. Higgins. Mm-hmm. So again, the Bengals, I'm not saying either of them can't be good.
Because you think Joe Burrow is more better.
Because he has a crush. He has a crush on Joe Burrow. What are you talking about?
Okay, get out of here with the. Listen,
I didn't mean it. It was a joke.
I'm sorry. Or whatever, but yeah, come on.
Can I respond to Jacob?
Yeah.
I would agree that the Pittsburgh Steelers could be a decent team if they didn't just lose TJ Watt for most likely the entirety of the season, and Najee Harris went down with.
Are they reporting for TJ to be done for the year?
It's a torn pec muscle.
If he gets surgery,
if it's fully torn, he has to. If it's fully torn, he has to get surgery. If it's strained, then there's a chance he could rehab it. But rehabbing something like that, especially when you're
6 weeks, right?
6 to 8 weeks and he's in a 3-point stance constantly, I don't really think it's a good look at all. If he comes back this season, I don't think he'll be fully healthy. 2, Najee Harris goes down with a foot injury, so your whole run game is gone at this point. Your O-line is terrible.
He's my fantasy team. God damn.
He's on my fantasy team too, Tino. I'm very upset about it.
Is he seriously injured?
No, so he has a Liz Frank sprain, which he's been dealing with since the beginning of training camp, and apparently he re-aggravated it. I've heard sources that it's a Liz Frank re-aggravation. I've heard sources that it's a high ankle sprain. Depending on what it is, I doubt he'll. I would guess 2 to 4. I don't. There's like shouts from the Pittsburgh Steelers camp that they think he's going to play next week. I think that's dog shit. But besides the point, the Bengals have much higher chance to bounce back than the Rams because the Bengals have a top 10 O-line, a top 5 running back, and arguably the best receiving core in the league with a good defense.
Yep.
The Rams have a dog water quarterback. No offense, but his elbow is mucked.
How could you say
that? His elbow is mucked. He's not healthy. He's not playing at 100%.
That's what you mean. I want you to clarify that.
No. Matt Stafford is not dog water, but where he's at right now, he's gonna play like crap unless he's throwing to Cooper Kupp. So you literally have a one-man offense with a subpar running back group, a middle of the pack O-line, and a defense that looks much worse than it did last year. I don't see the Rams doing anything this year.
I mean, I have the Rams going back to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to walk back on it yet. It's only week 1, but I will say it looks less likely. But also, if we're going to really talk about this, there wasn't one team really outside of the Eagles that looked that phenomenal in week 1. The Saints
The Vikings?
Okay, listen. The Saints had to do a last-second comeback against the Falcons. They were down big in that game, and they barely pulled it out. Yes, the Vikings played well. They didn't look as good as the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles look better defensively.
Chiefs, yeah.
The Chiefs?
NFC.
Oh,
NFC.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically to the NFC is that this is a very weak conference. Okay, Conor, get out of here. They won one game.
Saquon's back. Hey, who said Saquon Barkley would have 10-plus rushing touchdowns with over 1,200 rushing yards? That man is a battery pack, bro. Oh, my God, Energizer Bunny. That 2-point conversion –
insane.
I was ready to run through a wall for all you Giants fans out there. Daniel Jones, by the way, with Brian Dable. People forget Josh Allen was dog shit his first 2 years in the league.
He wasn't dog shit, but he wasn't great.
He was on the pretty close to the same level as Daniel Jones is right now. I see a sneaky little Daniel Jones come back in the works. The Jets, though, oh no, New York Football Jets.
You said that about Daniel Jones last year, and what happened last year?
Yeah, but Brian Dable,
They also
Brian Dable's not going to have Daniel Jones taking knees on the 5-yard line.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you. That's fair.
I don't know. I still think they'd be better suited with somebody else in the
Tyrod Taylor even. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, Joe Flacco. He's pretty good.
Yeah, but see, that's just like I said. How many times? How do you not start Mike White for that game? I mean, Flacco.
Start Mike White? What are you talking about? Start Mike White. Did you say start Mike White?
Was a statue, bro. He can't move.
Joe
Wait,
Flacco is horrendous.
Mike White was selling car insurance in a friggin' New Orleans parking lot 2 summers
Bengals
ago.
last year. What are you talking about?
He had a fantastic game last year.
Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl winner, and there was Ravens fans in the streets petitioning for Joe Flacco to start over Lamar Jackson when he got drafted. Joe Flacco is a stud. Don't get it twisted. He might be old.
What are you talking about?
He's better. You're saying Mike White?
Entire league.
No. He's better than Mike
White. If he was the starter, he'd be 30 of 30, 32, whatever the frick it is. 100%.
I disagree.
No, but listen.
Peyton, you're pissing him off, Connor. I
Are
want to
you
ask
serious? Wait, are you
really think Mike White is that much better than Joe Flacco? Like how much closer would the game have been if they started Mike White? You tell me.
I think we would have seen a completely different football game, especially considering the way the Jets defense played superb in the first half. The only reason they played
Devin Duvernay scored 2 touchdowns. Who is Devin Duvernay? Do you know who Devin Duvernay is? Where did Devin Duvernay go to college? He scored. Lamar was throwing absolute beauty balls against your DBs. They had nowhere to go. Your defense looked abysmal.
Let me explain something to you. You were watching Red Zone. I was watching the game. They had 10 points.
Were you watching?
Listen to me. They had 10 points in the first half. One of them was because of the Joe Flacco pick where they started from the 29. And the second one was on a botched punt, which ended up being a field goal, which started on the 45.
I just don't know how Mike White changes the scenario.
Because he has way more upside. It's true. Payne, you know it's true. Payne,
more upside? I don't agree.
He has more upside to potentially win you a football game than Joe Flacco.
Connor, get in there.
100%.
Nope.
If Mike White doesn't start in week 2, the Jets are still acceptable to this garbage. I'm serious. Like it's really 100%. Bad at this point.
It's the Jets. What did you guys expect? Like I'm so confused.
All the that they made free agency, the draft,
They lost.
All summer.
All 3 guys they drafted in the first round played at least 9 out of 10.
Garrett Wilson played.
Garrett Wilson probably played a 30 out of 10.
Yeah, what
I was going to say. Gardner is probably going to be one of the best cornerbacks in the league in a year, and I'm not even trying to exasperate because that's the truth. They both played superb.
Garrett Wilson on the other hand played like 6 or 9 snaps yesterday, or something like that. It was.
Yeah, they got to play him more for sure. But listen, we'll be better able to evaluate this team once Zach Wilson is back in about week 4 or 5. Once he's back, we can evaluate. I want to go over to the next.
I think they win the game if White starts next week.
You're literally delusional. You have a problem. You have a big problem.
They're playing Cleveland.
Cleveland just beat Carolina.
Baker Mayfield. What did I tell you all? A bum and a half.
No, Baker Mayfield is a massive bum. Let's be honest. No, he is. He's an absolute slob.
I don't want to keep you going about Mike White, but we do have to remember he went nuts against the Bengals last year. It's the last thing we're going to say on this topic. Moving on to the Giants. I want to talk about Saquon Barkley and then transition to some big breakout performers of week 1. But first, sticking with the Giants. Saquon had a phenomenal game. What was it, Connor? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like 20 carries, 160 yards, and a touchdown.
18 for 164.
That's what it was. 18 for 164. Yeah. So
5 receptions.
In that ballpark. Saquon had a phenomenal day. I do want to say I understand where Peyton's coming from because again, Josh Allen, was he as bad as Daniel Jones was? No, because Josh Allen didn't have the fumbling problem, but he was not great. He was the rawest prospect out of all of those guys coming out of that 2018 draft. There were question marks around him coming out of Wyoming. People were thinking Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold were more surefire, quarterbacks than Allen was. Got in the system with Dable and he built him up. I can genuinely with the skill positions they have between Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, who was utilized a lot more in that game than I think he was targeted almost the same amount of times in that game that he was all of last season in that archaic system with Jason Garrett. The Giants looked better. Their offense looked better, well run. It was more efficient. That deep ball he had to Sterling Shepard off that great route that he put on the defender.
Beautiful.
He looked better. He looked good. This was probably, again, almost one of the best times that he's looked in a game. And again, having Saquon makes it a lot easier on DJ, especially it opens up the play action game so much more because the defense has to respect Saquon to the maximum level. So The Giants looked really, really good. This is part of why I said they were going to go 8-9, same record as the Cowboys, because I genuinely think this Giants team could win 8+ games due to the fact that, and Two things. One, because of how good Saquon can be. And two, their strength of schedule is extremely, extremely soft. One of the easiest schedules, if not the easiest in the NFL, depending on how you want to look at it. So the Giants definitely could win 7 or 8 games, if not more than that. But Conor, you're our Giants fan. I'm going to give it to you. You got the floor. Tell us what you have to say about that game.
First time these boys are over 500 in 6 years. Think about that.
Are you serious?
Wow, that's crazy.
Gettleman out, Shermer out, McAdoo out, Judge out, Jason Garrett, Freddie Kitchens. It's all over. Brian Dable has balls of steel. We've seen it in week 1. Joe Shane already better than Dave Gettleman because he has a winning record. And the Giants have 3 winnable games coming up. Carolina at home, Dallas without Dak at home on Monday Night Football. So the entire world will see the Giants. And then week 4, I forget who they're playing, but it's a really bad team.
It's a W.
Giants, who?
It's a W. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a W.
No. Yes. Oh, they play the Bears. So the Giants could be 3-1 after week 4.
4-0, baby.
We'll see.
No,
They could
listen,
see.
Boys are
100%.
back.
See, he
Conor
agrees. Jacob agrees.
Well, their schedule is horrendous, and they're
It is.
okay. So they'll win games.
It's like they want Daniel Jones to get a chance to become good at NFL football, so then they can
And the
have a
thing is,
nice big team. You know, because the Jets definitely aren't going to be good, so they gotta give somebody a chance.
It's only Daniel Jones's 3rd head coach in 4 years.
That's atrocious. Having him in a set system is a big part of it. The other thing you brought up within that soliloquy, though, Dak Prescott's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks getting surgery on his throwing hand. That's going to be tough for the Cowboys. They were the only team in week 1 in the NFC East that did not come out with a win. And I absolutely loved on Instagram seeing Stephen A. Smith pan over that camera, and we get to see how about them Cowboys, baby. We get to see that once again. That's one of the best things every single year is when NFL season starts. We just know it's just what's going to happen. What can go wrong will go wrong. The Cowboys do not succeed at all. Now Dak's done for 6 weeks, about 6 weeks. What do you see for the NFC East, Conor? Can the Giants sneak in a wild card spot? I know it's only week 1, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. Bold prediction. After what you saw in week 1, it's way too early. But can the Giants? Can they steal a wild card spot and get 2nd place in the NFC East behind whoever the 1st place team is?
I think that the Eagles are better than them.
Yeah.
I think that the Giants are – I don't want to say they're better than the Cowboys, but I really
They
do.
are. Of course they are. The Cowboys look
Conor,
awful.
Conor, give me your bold prediction. It's way too early, but will the Giants make the playoff?
Giants are winning the division.
Let's go. Let's go. Come on. No, they're not. They're not.
Conor
The Eagles are
makes the
definitely,
ball
the Eagles are
real,
definitely
though,
winning.
I think they can squeak in with like 7 or 8 wins.
I do too. I agree.
Listen,
Completely
I predicted
agree.
them to get 8 wins. I think it's definitely possible. Now, last thing, I'm going to go to you, Jacob, first. Trey Lance in his debut, I know the conditions were absolutely horrendous for them in Chicago. Trey Lance did not look good by any stretch of the imagination. Can the 49ers turn that around, or is this going to be a sign of things to come with Trey Lance? And will we see Jimmy G slide back into that starting spot and take back the job that was given to Trey Lance at the start of the season?
Well, you guys know I doubted Lance. Obviously, nothing to change now. I'll continue on that thought that, I mean, he's got potential, 100%. I don't judge him for this game much due to the weather conditions, like you said. But
Yeah.
I can't see him having over a 17-game successful season. I either see them sticking with him and ending up with, I mean, I still think they'll be around 500 no matter what, just because of their defense and their run game and whatnot, and they're just scheming. But I can't see them being really successful with them over the course of a full season. So whether that means Garoppolo coming in 6 weeks, or whether that means them sticking them out as hard as they can and end up with 7-10 record-ish, those are the 2 scenarios I see.
Okay, and the other thing, too, I want to mention, there were a lot of things that we couldn't get to cover, so I want to just kind of run through a few things that we didn't get to talk about. The Browns-Panthers, Baker makes his, debut against his former team, the Browns, loses in a nail-biter, 26-24. Didn't look great, threw 1 interception. Completion percentage wasn't that great. Overall, didn't look phenomenal. McCaffrey, we got to see him back. He was pretty good, performed pretty well, got a touchdown. We got to see him leap over the defensive line again, which we hadn't seen in a long time, so I'm glad to see I'm glad to see McCaffrey and Saquon back. Put it that way. Justin Jefferson, in the first half against the Packers, I didn't even list his numbers. I believe in total he had like 9 or 10 catches for like 160, 170, and 2 touchdowns. He had like 3/4 of that in the first half alone. So in the first half by himself, Jefferson was going absolutely gangbusters, cooking that entire Packers defense. A lot of things happened this week 1. There were a ton of storylines. Yeah, one more.
Can I name 2? AJ Brown, 10 catches for 155 yards.
Oh, that was the one, yeah.
My God. Michael Pittman and Matt Ryan,
yep.
10 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown. Those 2 guys going into their 3rd or 4th year, respectively, man, they look really, really good, especially for fantasy purposes on those offenses. Yep. I am super happy to have them on my team, and I just wanted to shout that out one time.
And I had AJ Brown at the flex, and he gave me 22 in one of my leagues, so shout out to him. And a big thing, too, I got to throw out there. I'm going to leave us with this. Not a single team in the AFC South won a game in week 1. They either tied or they all lost. I got to end on that. But again, thank you guys so much for watching another great episode of The Cold Hard Truth. Thank you again to Leigh Steinberg so much for joining the show. Joined in the middle. We got some great questions in there. We appreciate his appearance. If you're not following us on Instagram, go follow us at TCHT_podcast. Twitter also at TCHT_podcast1. Those are our socials. They'll be down below in the description, as well as the 4 of us. All of our socials down below in the description. Thank you guys for watching The Cold Hard Truth. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.